The Sacred 28 is a list of magical families still considered pureblood by the 1930s. Although the list creator was not made public, it is believed to have been cantankerous not. In these videos, I'm going to take you through a different magical family from the Sacred 28 list, starting with today's family, the House of Gaunt. The House of Gaunt was once a prominent, wealthy family in the wizarding world, and originated from many powerful magical wizards and witches. So let's take a look at the family's origins. The origins of House Gaunt stretches back to the 1600s, and even far beyond that, all the way back to Salazar Slytherin. But the information available begins in the early 1600s with the story of Gormleth Gaunt and Isolde Sawyer. Now, tensions with Muggles at this point were at their worst, and the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy wasn't even created until the end of the century in 1689. Gormleth killed her own sister Rhiannoch and her husband William Sawyer for betraying the family's belief in pureblood supremacy when they aided neighbouring Muggles. Now, as I've said, tensions were very high with Muggles at this point, and many wizards and witches were being hunted and slain by Muggles, and Gormleth seeing the simple act of helping a Muggle, just helping, as an extreme betrayal. I can't imagine what her reaction would be to the modern day marriages between Muggles and magical people. She killed them by setting their cottage on fire. Gormleth then took their child, her very own niece Isolde, and imprisoned her for 12 years, in the hope that she could raise her in the family's pureblood traditions. Isolde, never forgetting her aunt's cruelty, ultimately fled to the New World, America, and helped found Ilvermorny's School of Witchcraft and Wizardry with her Muggle husband James Stewart. Around the year 1634, Gormleth discovered that a head teacher at a new school of magic in the New World was nicknamed Morrigan. She remembered her niece was named this by her father because of their lineage to Morrigan herself. Morrigan was a famous Irish witch. When she also heard the school was named Ilvermorny, she knew it had to be Isolde because it was the same name of the cottage that Isolde was born in and Gormleth set fire to. She was also extremely upset to hear that Isolde had married a Muggle and opened the school up to anyone with magic and not a select few of purebloods. She set out to America in order to exact revenge on her niece and eventually tracked her down. She confronted Isolde, voicing her disgust at her behaviour and betrayal to her family. Isolde was wandless at the time, and Gormleth had managed to back the Stewart family into a room and was preparing to kill James and the couple's daughters when Isolde screamed for her friend William. William appeared behind Gormleth and shot her through the heart with an arrow, killing her instantly. Our Gaunt family history moves to the 1700s, back on the other side of the world in Britain. Being direct descendants of Salazar Slytherin, the family also knew about the Chamber of Secrets, and Corvinus Gaunt was instrumental in keeping the entrance to the chamber a secret. In the 1700s, there was a proposal to install an elaborate plumbing system at Hogwarts Castle. This, of course, threatened the secrecy around the entrance to the chamber, which at the time still had its original appearance. It was simply a concealed trapdoor and a series of magical tunnels, quite basic, and was located at the site of where the girls' bathroom would be set up. Corvinus was, at the time, a student at Hogwarts and knew where the entrance to the chamber was and exactly how to open it. He was responsible for secretly protecting the entrance, having concealed it behind plumbing fixtures and a sink, which today are part of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, so that those who knew how could still access the chamber. Up until the 20th century, every single member of the Gaunt family was pureblood. They were also the last known descendants of Salazar Slytherin, as I've mentioned, as well as descendants of the Peverells, famed ancestors in whom they took great pride and mentioned quite often. The Gaunts inherited their ancestors' ability to speak Parseltongue. Like other pureblood families of the time, they were supreme advocates of blood purity, and were often inbred in order to keep their bloodline pure. However, by the 20th century, inbreeding had rendered many members of the family mentally unstable, and seeing them squander the family fortune while costing it much of its prestige among elite pureblood circles, something it had held for centuries. Despite this, their habit of keeping themselves pure allowed them to become one of the Sacred 28. By the early 20th century, the Gaunts had been reduced to poverty, possessing only a few old heirlooms and living in a small, rundown shack. Additionally, generations of inbreeding had made the current generation extremely violent and unstable. Marvolo Gaunt was often abusive towards his daughter Merope, whose own emotional trauma made it very difficult for her to use magic, making others believe she was a squib. Her brother, Morphin, spoke in Parseltongue more than English and frequently terrorized muggles, eventually leading to his imprisonment in Azkaban. Marvolo, returning from a 6-month term in Azkaban, died due to shock at Merope's betrayal, which led to his refusal to feed himself, while never again mentioning his daughter's existence. Morphin, returning from his 3-year sentence, then succeeded his father as the patriarch of the family. Morphin lived, as the last male heir to the Gaunt name, in solitude for the next 13 years, with very poor care of his hygiene and household, causing both his appearance and the shack to deteriorate drastically. He was sentenced to life in Azkaban when his nephew, Tom Riddle Jr., came to visit to learn about his heritage. After learning the truth, Tom then used Morphin as a scapegoat for the murder of the Riddle family. With an implanted memory, Morphin easily confessed to a crime he did not commit, and was incarcerated until his death. By the time evidence of his innocence arose, his health had already weakened to the point that he died before the Ministry could even release him, and his body was buried at the Azkaban burial ground. Upon the death of Morphin, heir to the House of Gaunt, the male line of the Gaunt family ended. The female line, along with the Slytherin family and Riddle family, continued under Tom Marvolo Riddle, who would later be known as Lord Voldemort. Although to the wizarding world at large it seemed that these 3 families ended with the death of Voldemort. In truth, they continue with his secret daughter Delphine, whom he sired with Bellatrix Lestrange. Delphine was later sent to Azkaban for her crimes of murder and attempting to illegally alter timelines. Now, as I've said, the Gaunts were once a very wealthy family, but they had squandered much of their gold early on, due to the family's love for grandeur and also reckless spending due to mental instability, leaving them with very little inheritances for later generations. Gormleth Gaunt possessed Salazar Slytherin's wand and used it to torture muggles and entrap her niece Isolde Sawyer. Isolde stole the wand when she fled to the New World in 1620. However, it was deactivated or put to sleep by a spell from Gormleth when she hunted down her niece around 1634, and was eventually buried at Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where it grew into a huge, unique snakewood tree, whose leaves had magical properties. Now, although the heirlooms in the current possession of the Gaunts weren't high in numbers, they certainly were high in value. Marvolo Gaunt was in possession of a signet ring passed on to him from his Peverell ancestors. This ring was eventually turned into a Horcrux by Lord Voldemort and destroyed by Albus Dumbledore with the Sword of Gryffindor. It also contained the Resurrection Stone, one of the legendary Deathly Hallows, something Voldemort had no knowledge of. The stone itself was lost in the Forbidden Forest when Harry Potter dropped it as he went to confront Lord Voldemort. The Gaunts also held on to the Locket of Salazar Slytherin for many generations. However, Merope later sold it to Borgin and Burkes in order to support herself while she was pregnant. It later came into the possession of Hepzibah Smith, whom a teenage Tom Marvolo Riddle killed and stole the locket from, or in Riddle's opinion, retrieved what was rightfully his. He also turned this heirloom of his mother's family into a Horcrux. Much later it was stolen from its hiding place by Regulus Arcturus Black, and then later destroyed by Ron Weasley with the Sword of Gryffindor. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever, so please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do, it's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content, so if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDeanJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.